All right, so I want you to grab your white ruler that we sent home on Friday. It was with your homework packet or tucked in your blue folder. I left mine at school, so I made one out of a note card. And so I want you to grab it and go ahead and stop this video if you need to stop and go get it. But once you have it, I want you to notice how this ruler looks very much like a number line. And we are number line experts, so I just want you to notice how if I hold my ruler up next to the number line, the end of my ruler is the 0, and I see all my whole numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and your ruler has more than just a half in between each hole, but I just want to focus in on measuring to the ½ inch today. So I want you to notice that in between the 0 and the 1, there's a 1/2 there. If you want, you can actually go ahead and write your half on there. And then as I move to 1 inch, I see another half in between 1 and 2, and I'm going to write a half in there too. Now I know when we did a number line, we would go 1/2, 2/2, 3/2, 4/2, 5/2, and keep going. But when we measure with the ruler, we don't do that. We just go back to the half. So in between 2 and 3, I have 1/2. In between 3 and 4, I have 1/2. And 4 and 5, I have 1/2. And I know your ruler goes on. It's a little longer than mine, but that's okay. Okay, so now to measure some lines, I'm going to use my ruler. I always put my left hand corner of my ruler on the very edge of the line that I'm measuring, and I'm going to read my ruler from left to right. So as I move to the right on this ruler, I start at 0 and I pass 1 inch and 2 inches, and I don't make it all the way to 3 inches. My line doesn't go all the way to 3 inches, but it makes it halfway. So this measurement is 2 1/2 inches. I move 2 whole inches and then a ½ of an inch. I'm going to slide down to this one, do the same thing. I put my corner of my ruler onto the edge of the line. I'm going to move from left to right, starting at 0, just like we do on a number line. 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches. This line goes all the way to 4 inches, so I don't have any half on my measurement. It's just 4 inches long, 4 whole inches. I'm going to drop down to this line, do the same thing. I start at 0, I'm moving to the right, 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, and I don't make it all the way to 4 inches. I'm at 3 inches and I make it another ½ of an inch. So this measurement is 3 inches and 1/2 inch. So 3 1/2 inches. And then this last line, I'm going to do the same thing, put my ruler on the very edge. I start at 0, I pass 1 inch. I don't make it to 2 inches, but I don't make it all the way to 1/2 inches. So I'm going to I'm just going to round it to the closest ½ inch. So this line is closer to 1 1/2 inches than it is to 1 inch. So my measurement is going to be 1 1/2 inch. Sometimes you have to do that. You have to look and see which measurement, which line it's closest to, and just go with that measurement. Okay, so what I want you to do is just take a crayon and a marker and a notebook paper and just draw some lines of different lengths all over your paper. And then I want you to use your ruler and measure those inches to the closest ½ inch. I know you've got other lines on your ruler. You've got 1/4 inches too, and we're going to talk about that in later on this week. But I just want to focus on measuring to the nearest ½ inch for this lesson. So you're going to do the same thing that I was showing you. Line your ruler up on that line, and you're going to find that a lot of your lines don't measure out perfectly like this one does, but measure to the closest ½ inch. So this one's going to be 1 1/2. Well, it's kind of right in the middle of 1 1/2 and 2 inches, so it could go either way. I could say it's 1 1/2 inches, or I could round up to 2 inches, whichever one, because it's kind of right smack dab in the middle. But this one is right at 2 inches. So I just want you to make a bunch of lines on your paper and measure them using your ruler, and then take a picture of your paper and post it on our Flipgrid.